If you're interested in a career in photography, there are really only two options nowadays. Be a professional photographer or be an influencer or YouTuber. So today we're going to compare North Borders, who is arguably the most popular car photography influencer YouTuber, versus myself. Although I have a small YouTube channel, nothing compared to North Borders, I also have a lot of experience shooting over 25 years for professional clients such as Ferrari, Lamborghini, Audi, lots and lots of Audi, by the way. And I am in the unique position to be able to compare both of these wildly different worlds. And I'm going to be super blunt about it. After my last video reacting to the car creative, a lot of you requested that I also do one about North Borders. Now, I wanted to, and I started watching some of his videos to find one to react to, but I quickly concluded that this wasn't going to work. I found that we are two different, almost complete opposites in the way we present ourselves to the world. Which brings me to my first point, that social media photography and professional photography are completely different worlds. Besides the love of photography, which I think is the baseline prerequisite, there is very little overlap between the two. North Borders is perhaps the most popular car photography YouTuber. So I'm going to use him to represent what success looks like on social media. And I tip my hat off to him for doing apparently so well, capturing a massive audience in a relatively short amount of time. Everything he is and does seems to be a recipe for success. His on-screen presentation, his captivating personality, and all the fancy cars he shoots. And obviously no coincidence why so many of you requested I react to his videos. So let me ask you a question. How important is it for you to be hired solely for your photographic ability, your vision, your creativity, for example? Or is it okay to let that slide and be hired for other qualities you may have, such as your subscriber count, or your on-camera presence, or your personality on camera again? If you want to be known for your photography, mainly, be a professional photographer. If you enjoy social media and you want to be able to express yourself in many different ways and have a lot of different income streams, then maybe social media influencing is for you. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. Actually, I think both are equally capable of making a decent living at. So I'm not going to knock one down over the other, especially that I do both. But here is the problem. If you think that building a great social media presence will lead you to become a professional photographer, I don't think that's possible. I think a lot of people are trying to go down that path, but unfortunately, it will lead them to become only a successful influencer, not a professional photographer. Because, like I said earlier, these worlds are too different. And let's cut to the chase. YouTube, from a professional photographer's point of view, only covers about 20 to 25% of all the necessary knowledge you need to know to become a professional. And it's regurgitated because social media is a lot based on trends. Someone mentions something and it circulates. And whether that information is good information or misinformation, it still circulates. And that's the way social media works. Unfortunately, everyone stays in one area because there are not enough professionals on social media to debunk some of this information. So it's very basic. And that's why I say 20 to 25% of the necessary knowledge that you need, from my experience, is found on YouTube. There's no one really talking about the remaining 75% of the knowledge that you need to know. For example, lots of information and videos talking about camera settings, lens selections, very basic lighting, you know? And where's all the advanced stuff? Who's teaching that? Nobody. And it's based on interest too. I know that if I made a video going in depth about lighting, no one's going to watch it because that's not trendy. People love to talk about the cameras instead. So everyone kind of just sticks into one area. And that's unfortunate because the remaining 75% is what you need to break through and have the necessary skills to become a pro. So the question is, where do you learn the remaining 75%? And that is mainly outside of social media. And I've said this in my other videos before, that assisting is probably the best way because you are directly learning from a professional photographer. And I don't know why in this day and age, so many up and coming photographers are not going down this path. Is it because they're lazy or because they just throw their hands up in the air and say, I can't find a photographer that will hire me to be an assistant? Well, tough, because the reality is finding a photographer, at least in my experience, that will hire you as an assistant to mop the floors, to clean the toilets, to wash the dishes, not great work in addition to what you learn on set, is as difficult as finding a paid photo shoot from a client. When I started assisting, I had to do the cold calling, sell myself, with no experience, to photographers who will pay me $80 a day to mop their floors for them. That's how low I was willing to go so I can learn. But now, having been through all that, I can safely say that I know 75% of knowledge that is not available online. It's in here. I learned it, but there's nowhere else it can be found. And that's not a secret I hold to myself. I teach it in my courses and in my consulting, but it's not on YouTube. So I think that most people will really have to think long and hard if they want to be a professional shooter. Where are they going to learn this information from? Because it's not online. So a while back, I made a poll on YouTube as a post asking you, do you want to be an influencer or a professional photographer? So if the results came back pretty much neck and neck, 50-50, I would dismiss that poll because the sample size was too low. About 130 people responded. Not a lot. But because the actual results came back 82% professional photographer, 18% influencer, I can pretty much say safely that most of you want to be a professional photographer. So if YouTube only covers the basics and you're here to learn about being a professional, my question to you, and this is self-defeating because of course I want you to watch my content, is why are you here? This is not the place to be a professional. This is a great place to be a beginner because there's lots of beginner content, but the actual professional material cannot be found here. I'm not sure if this is a criticism, but I see some people like North Borders having a swagger about their ways of shooting, a certain carelessness mixed with their passion that ends up looking cool. I'm not sure. For example, he could be shooting handheld, and I'm not sure if that's done deliberately to make himself appear a certain way on YouTube. Of course, I think that's really bad technique, but if that's part of his charisma, part of his channel's personality, maybe I can't blame him. I honestly don't know why there's that much emphasis in the up-and-coming crowd on social media? Is it because it's just so easy to get into? I agree, it's a very low barrier for entry. You just hit record and make some content, do it consistently over time, have a little patience, and eventually people will notice you. You might get a lot of subscribers, followers. If you're a YouTuber, you'll qualify for AdSense revenue. Then the brand deals will come knocking, and before you know it, you'll start making some money. But that has nothing to do with professional photography. So I just wanted to make sure you understand that these are two completely different things. It's not the path that a typical professional photographer goes through to get paid client work. I don't think that the clients are on social media looking for photographers. So if you are tagging brands, the reason why they don't respond is because the people responsible for the brand's social media are not the same people who are hiring photographers for that brand. They could be definitely different people. One is a social media manager who manages their social media accounts. The other is an art director or creative director or art buyer who is responsible for hiring photographers. Definitely different people. Likely working for different companies. Social media manager may be working for a digital agency for the brand. The art director, art buyer would be working for the ad agency who has the brand as a client. Completely different companies. They could be in different cities, different parts of the country. So the chances of you tagging someone, a brand, and expecting them to hire you for a photo shoot, next to zero. Pretty much zero. It just doesn't happen, especially for bigger brands. And if you want to be a car photographer, every car brand is a massive brand. So it's not a mom and pop shop where one person does everything and they're the social media manager and the art buyer. So in big business, lots of people involved, separate companies doing separate things. So yeah, so based on that fact, I don't know how someone trying to grow a social media presence to attract the brands to shoot for them is really the smartest choice. Now, having said this, I know that if you've gained enough following and built your social media presence, the brands will notice, but they will probably not hire you to shoot their campaigns. At most, they will hire you to shoot social media content for them. Are you okay with that? Because they are hiring you as a influencer, not as a photographer. One telltale sign someone's an influencer versus photographer, even if they call themselves a photographer, an influencer will probably have a website trying to maximize their income streams in multiple ways. So if you go to someone's website like North Borders or the Car Creative, if the first thing you see is them selling LUTs or merch, they're an influencer. If the first thing you see is their photography, they're a photographer. I think it's really that simple. Most photographers are selling their photography. If you go to their website and if they've designed their website well, the first thing you see should be their work. But if you go to someone's website where the first thing you see is them trying to sell things like LUTs, and I'll make another video about why I hate LUTs so much, that's a telltale sign that they're an influencer, not a photographer. They may be photography in their website, but it's probably buried way down below, which means to me, it's not that important. So in summary, I think that if you want to be a social media influencer, YouTuber, whatever, I think you know what to do. You already exist in this space. I am talking to you within social media right now. So it's pretty obvious what you need to do. As a pro, on the other hand, who are not well represented in social media, I think that's where there's a missing gap. I'm trying to fill that gap, but I alone cannot do it all. So if you want to be a pro, my first suggestion is to make sure you learn all the basics. I mean, pro versus beginner, massive gap in between, right? So if you're learning stuff on YouTube and you're still learning a lot of new things, kind of still means you're a beginner. Stick around, learn more. But when you've learned enough, know that you've only learned 25% of what's necessary. There's a lot more you need to know. And I haven't even talked about the business skills of running a photography business. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about way more advanced skills beyond what YouTube offers, like lighting, like I talked about earlier. You know, unfortunately, that's just it's never going to work well in YouTube unless there's significant interest in the YouTube audience to say, hey, we want to see way more lighting, for example, or we want to know how to be more creative, for example. Those things, in my experience, I haven't seen that much interest in. That's why I don't talk about it, even though I think those things are way more important than cameras and lenses, which I think are the most boring stuff to talk about. Anyway, hope you found this video interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I know this is pretty controversial, so I'd love to hear your thoughts, haters included. And let me know what other videos you'd like me to make. Until then, see you soon.